Making headlines this hour, Economic Minister announces that the Maldives preferential trade agreement with Turkey will be enforced within the next 2 months. Higher Education Ministry figure shows over 10,000 students are currently enrolled in government-funded higher education programs. And the Monetary Authority of Maldives, or MMA, has issued licenses to 34 new entities under the new Foreign Exchange Act. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to PSM News in English with me, Abdullah Ahil. And now the news in detail. Minister of Economic Development and Trade Mohammad Saeed announces that Maldives' preferential trade agreement with Turkey will be enforced within the next 2 months. The preferential trade agreement was signed between the Maldives and Turkey on the 4th of November 2024, aimed at strengthening the bilateral trade relations between the two countries. Speaking on PSM News Rajamir, the program, Minister Saeed said the preferential trade agreement with Turkey will come into force once it is endorsed by the Turkish parliament. The minister said the endorsement is expected to be given within the next 2 months. The agreement was discussed during President Dr. Mohamed Muizz's visit to Turkey in November last year when he met with Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan to discuss enhancing bilateral relations. The two leaders engaged in extensive discussions on strengthening economic ties, including cooperation in trade, investment, renewable energy, and higher education. The agreement will not only ease fish exports to Turkey but also reduce trade barriers, bolster trade relations between the two countries, and facilitate increased bilateral trade, the minister had said earlier. Maldivian fish exporters will also have the opportunity to expand their business in the Turkish market, while Maldivian consumers and businesses will benefit from access to Turkish products at lower prices, he had said. The free trade agreement with China came into force on the 1st of January this year as the government continues to explore trade agreements with India, the UAE, Sri Lanka, and Saudi Arabia. Ministry of Higher Education, Labor and Skills Development figures show that over 10,000 students are currently enrolled in government-funded higher education programs. Students are primarily funded by the government through 3 main programs, including student loans, scholarships, and the free first degree program. According to the latest statistics, the government has spent over $65.5 million on the student loan scheme since 2024, along with $22.7 million on scholarships and $16.2 million on the free first degree program. The statistics showed that 1,159 students have started their respective programs through the student loan program since 2024, out of which 964 have already graduated. The government has announced student loans to 2,051 students during the period, while 1,676 students are studying in 40 different countries, including the Maldives. According to the scholarship statistics, 268 students have gone abroad on government scholarships since 2024, while 357 had graduated during this period. The government has also decided to award scholarships to 1,177 more students during the period, with 607 students pursuing higher education in 20 countries, including the Maldives. The free degree scheme has seen 4,300 student enrollments since 2024, with 5,568 students graduated from the program during this period. There are currently 8,357 students enrolled in the free first degree program. President Dr. Mohamed Muizz, meanwhile, has instructed the relevant ministries to issue student loans to all eligible applicants under this year's government loan scheme for higher education in the Maldives and abroad. Schools across the Maldives reopens for the second academic term following a 16-day inter-term break. The return to classrooms marks a key moment in the academic year for approximately 90,000 students as the government prepares to implement a significant reform to the national school calendar. Students began their first term holiday on the 24th of July. With the second term now underway, classes are scheduled to continue until the 25th of December. The academic year will then conclude with the annual holiday period observed from the 28th of December through the 22nd of January. The calendar reform reflects a reversal of the previous administration's decision to initiate the school year mid-year. President Dr. Mohamed Muizz's government has confirmed that beginning in 2026, the academic year will officially commence on the 27th of January, restoring the traditional January start, long favored by educators and institutions. The Maldivian education system currently accommodates approximately 90,000 students, with nearly 84,000 enrolled in 217 government-run schools across the country. Data continues to show a pronounced concentration of students in the capital region. The 19 schools located in Male account for 33% of total enrollment. In parallel, 21% of the nation's educational workforce is employed within these Male-based institutions. Maldives Central Bank, the monetary authority of Maldives, issues licenses to 34 new entities under the new Foreign Exchange Act. The MMA opened the license application process under the money-changing business regulations on the 2nd of October last year. The MMA said it has issued licenses to 34 new entities under the Foreign Exchange Act during this period, which includes 29 Tier 1 licenses and 5 Tier 2 licenses. The Tier 1 money-changing license is issued to companies established for buying and selling foreign currency under the Companies Act, while the Tier 2 license is issued to companies licensed to operate tourist resorts under Maldives Tourism Act. The new 34 licenses add to the 28 entities with existing foreign exchange licenses, taking the total tally up to 62 thus far. As part of the MMA's efforts to strengthen the legal framework of the foreign exchange market and maintain stability in the financial sector, the new regulation on money-changing business, replacing the old regulations outlining arrangements for money changers, which has been in effect since 1987. The Maldives Monetary Authority projects a record 2.4 million tourist arrivals in the coming year, signaling renewed momentum in the island nation's most vital economic sector. The forecast builds on a strong first-half performance, marked by sustained growth in both visitor numbers and overnight stays.
The central bank, in its mid-term report, recorded a 9.2% increase in international arrivals during the first 6 months of 2025 compared with the same period last year. MMA data shows by the end of June, 1,108,130 tourists had visited the country, up from 1,015,527 in the corresponding period of 2024. Growth was also evident in the duration of stays, with total bed nights reaching 6,892,533 by mid-year, an increase of 1.2% over the same period last year. These figures reflect a continued resilience in the tourism sector, supported by favorable market conditions and recent infrastructure enhancements. Among the developments cited by the MMA is the operationalization of the new passenger terminal at Welana International Airport. Now fully functional, the upgraded facility is expected to improve international connectivity and accommodate higher volumes of inbound traffic. The central bank identified this expansion as a key factor underpinning its revised projections. Earlier estimates released in May had placed expected arrivals for 2025 at 2.2 million. The government has since adjusted its own forecast, now anticipating 2.3 million visitors by year-end. Passenger traffic through Welana International Airport further illustrates the sector's momentum. The airport served 4.1 million travelers in the first half of the year, underscoring elevated activity at the country's primary international gateway. Beyond tourism, the MMA expects broader economic gains. National gross domestic product is projected to grow between 4.5% and 5.6% by the end of the year. driven largely by the anticipated surge in tourism-related revenue.
Maldives Airports Company Limited, or MACL, reveals the main gateway into the Maldives Velana International Airport, or VIA, has handled over 4 million passengers in the first 6 months of the year. According to MACL statistics, 4,108,845 passengers traveled through VIA in the first 6 months of this year, marking a 4% passenger traffic increase compared to the same period last year. Of the 4.1 million passengers, 2,669,969 were international passengers, while 579,079 traveled domestically. The remaining 859,797 passengers flew by seaplane, the statistics showed. The most passenger traffic on a single day was recorded on the 4th of January, with 26,658 passengers handled by VIA on the day. A total of 7,439 passengers traveled by seaplane on the 16th of February, the most seaplane passenger traffic on record so far this year. In line with the surge in passenger traffic, air traffic movements also increased by 7% in the first 6 months of this year compared to the same period last year. Air traffic movements in the first 6 months of this year stood at 124,665, with 17,614 international flights, 14,100 domestic flights, along with 92,941 seaplane movements. The statistics also showed that during the first 6 months of this year, 34,000 tons of cargo was cleared by VIA, a 6% increase compared to the same period last year. Now fully functional, VIA's recently unveiled new international passenger terminal, capable of handling 7 million passengers annually, is expected to improve international connectivity and accommodate higher volumes of inbound traffic. The state-owned Maldives Industrial Fisheries Company initiates negotiations to acquire the privately owned Ensis Cannery and Processing Plant in Hulumale, aiming to restore a strategically significant industrial asset and strengthen the company's fish processing capacity. The facility has remained inactive for approximately 18 months. MIFCO confirmed that technical assessments of its operational potential have been completed and that the company intends to invest in advanced machinery and equipment to recommence production. According to MIFCO, discussions with Ensis Fisheries Private Limited, the plant's current owner, are ongoing. Commissioned on the 9th of December 2019, following a capital investment of $25 million, the Ensis factory was, at the time of its inauguration, the largest fish processing facility in the Greater Malay region. Designed with a daily canning capacity of 25 tons of fish, the plant also includes a 1,000-ton ice production unit and storage infrastructure capable of accommodating 1,200 tons of chilled fish. The fish meal plant, intended to convert fish waste into fertilizer, further reflects the facility's integrated approach to marine resource utilization. Despite its technical sophistication, the factory ceased operations due to financial pressures stemming from a policy shift under the previous administration. Ensis Fisheries, which employed approximately 200 personnel at the site, attributed the closure to a mandated increase in the purchase price of skipjack tuna of $1.62 per kilogram, a change that the company said it resulted in unsustainable losses. Established in 2002, Ensis Fisheries initially focused on the export of skipjack tuna to international markets. The company expanded its operations in 2006 with the launch of its first fish factory and subsequently introduced its proprietary brand, Enzi, distributing processed fish products both domestically and abroad. U.S. stocks ends higher and Nasdaq scores a record closing high for the second straight day as technology-related shares, including Apple, gained amid optimism about expectations for rate cuts this year.
Three major indices also registered gains for the week. Apple shares climbed, extending recent gains. Earlier this week, U.S. President Donald Trump and Apple would invest an additional $100 billion in the U.S., bringing its total commitment to $600 billion over the next 4 years. The S&P 500 Technology Index also rose. Also helping the S&P 500 shares of Gilead Sciences rose after it raised its full-year financial outlook. According to LSEG, with results in now from more than 450 of S&P 500 companies, estimated earnings growth for the second quarter was at 13.2%, up from 5.8% on July 1st. Recent weaker economic data has underpinned expectations for the rate cuts, while investors are evaluating Trump's interim pick for the Federal Reserve governor. The President-nominated Council of Economic Advisers Chair Stephen Miran to the short-term board seat following Adriana Kugler's abrupt exit last week, as he narrowed his shortlist to succeed Fed Chair Jerome Powell, whose term ends on May 15th.
Stocks are up and are going to close the week near their high, with new all-time highs likely for the S&P and definitely for the NASDAQ. It's a combination of some geopolitical hopes. The fact that the president is going to meet with Putin very near term is giving some hope of relaxation of geopolitical tensions. Earnings continue to be strong, and the hope for lower interest rates.
Miran also is often aligned with Trump, has previously suggested Powell was too late in lowering rates. According to CME Group's FedWatch tool, traders now peg about 90% chance of the first rate cut hitting next month, with futures pointing to at least 2 cuts by year-end. The S&P 500 gained 49.45 points to end at 6,389.45 points, while the Nasdaq Composite gained 207.32 points to 21,450.02. The Dow Jones Industrial Average rose 206.97 points or 0.47% to 44,175.61.
Trucks carrying aid and fuel bound for Gaza made their way from Egypt's Rafah. On August 6th, Amal Imam, the executive director of the Egyptian Red Crescent, said that trucks carrying about 14,500 tons of aid in total had entered Gaza from Egypt since Israel agreed on July 27th to allow more aid to reach the population. Imam said 800 out of the nearly 1,000 trucks that crossed the border arrived at destination in Gaza so far. She added that some trucks have faced obstacles getting approval due to restrictions placed on certain products by Israel. Palestinian and UN officials say Gaza needs around 608 trucks to enter per day to meet the humanitarian requirements the number of Israel used to allow in Gaza before the war. Hamas said it was prepared to coordinate with the Red Cross to deliver aid to hostages it holds in Gaza if Israel permanently opens humanitarian corridors and halts airstrikes during the distribution of aid. Dozens of Afghan refugees, including women and children and the elderly, gathers at the Chaman border in Pakistan's Balochistan as they waited to cross into Afghanistan amid a crackdown on documented refugees. Pakistan has given September 1st deadline for all documented Afghan refugees to leave. Their deportation had already started ahead of the deadline, according to the UNHCR. Lugging bags packed with their belongings, the refugees were seen waiting outside a registration office at the border, with some saying they were willingly returning to Afghanistan and happy to be going back. Lal Muhammad, traveling with 9 children, all born in Pakistan, said his family was going to Kandahar, Afghanistan voluntarily after securing a rented home there. Pakistan's repatriation plan has drawn criticism from rights groups. Over 2.1 million Afghans have already fled back this year, overwhelming Afghanistan's collapsed economy. Despite a supposed grace period, evictions continued, leaving refugees in legal limbo. Pakistani authorities have said that Islamabad wants all Afghan nationals to leave except for those who have valid visas. The repatriation drive by Pakistan is part of a campaign called the Illegal Foreigners Repatriation Plan, launched in late 2023. In addition to the repatriation from Pakistan, Afghanistan also faces a fresh wave of mass deportations from Iran. Aid groups worry that the influx risks further destabilizing the country. Indonesia powers its way to gold in the open 8-seater 2000 Dragon boat pursuit, commanding the Chengdu waters in 9:08.12, marking a landmark moment as Dragon boat makes its debut as an official sport at the World Games.
Sweden's Melina Andersson claimed the women's canoe marathon K1 short distance title in 15 minutes 20 seconds 64 milliseconds. Her win here, the latest chapter in a scintillating vein of form from the past year that saw her win the 2024 Worlds despite breaking her paddle and rallying on a spare. The men's race came down to a battle of milliseconds, with Denmark's Mads Brandt Pedersen seizing the men's K1 short distance gold in 13 minutes 45 seconds 46 milliseconds, just piping South Africa's Hamish Lovemore. Pedersen, already a world and European champion, now adds another jewel to a sparkling career. Portugal's Jose Romero came third. In the archery competition, target compound men's world number 1 Mike Scholesser defeated Curtis Brodnecks to claim his first gold in the World Games just weeks after becoming a new father.
Medellin's artisans and flower growers prepares for the upcoming Cieteros Parade, the central event and culmination of the region's flower festival.
Santa Elena, district of Medellin, is renowned as the birthplace of the iconic stilettos, floral arrangements carried on the backs of people known as stiletteros. Each year during the festival, stiletteros march through Medellin's streets, showcasing their colorful stilettos, works of art made with flowers and natural elements, symbols of rural labor, family heritage, and tradition from the mountainous region. Originally used to transport goods and people in Santa Elena's mountainous terrain, stilettos have evolved into floral art representing traditional, emblematic, or commercial themes. During this time, families teach children to shape cardboard bases for artistic stilettos, explore the local heritage, and visit gardens to exchange species before they hit the streets in the Stiletteros Parade. Artisan and stilettero Francisco Quintoro said, quote, "It's a unique emotion to look at the past, feel this present we are living in, and know that the future will be even more promising," unquote, while placing flowers on his stilettos shaped like a bird. The Feria de las Flores parade is due to be held today on the 10th of August.
And that's all the news we have for today. We'll be back with any further updates. Until then, I'm Abdullah Ahil from PSM News.